This is the part of the movie where you used to just get up and leave. Now, this is where you take out your phone. Apologies to First AD Lars P. Winther, but I'm not really sticking around to see your name.
Do that again.
This time on Do That Again, Marvel's post-credit scenes. Post-credit scenes have become the sequel symbol of the Marvel Universe, and one of the reasons that they work so well is that they create a true franchise, and they weren't the first to do it. What are post-credit scenes if not an expansion on the James Bond will return shot? At their best, a post-credit scene builds off what we just saw and creates anticipation for what comes next. But before we dive into Marvel, let's look at what I think is one of the greatest post-credit scenes of all time. In Universal's own cinematic universe, Fast 6. For those of you who are wasting your lives and aren't deeply familiar with the trials of Dom Toretto, Fast 5 had Vin and the family against Special Agent The Rock. Fast 6 has The Rock join the team, and they take down bad guy Luke Evans. Meanwhile, in Tokyo Drift, also known as Fast 3, which in the chronology of the Furious universe takes place after the 6th, family favorite Han is killed in a car crash. And that takes us to the post-credit scenes of 6, where we find out that Han was killed to send a message, and it introduces the villain and conflict of 7, where we get the first glimpse of that villain. Frickin' Jason Statham. The takeaway from this is that the post-credit scene can shine when it executes two missions: tease future stories and introduce new things. It steps everything up because it introduces real stakes by incorporating the deaths of someone we've grown attached to, but that's a level that's almost impossible to achieve. And now we go back to Marvel. At the beginning, Iron Man set it off with the first tease, where we learned about the Avengers for the first time, and we introduced Samuel L. Jackson walking out like a badass with an eye patch. 9 out of 10. Gimme more heroes. Back in Phase 1, just showing that these movies could connect was brand new, so it was easy to excite in the post-credits, with even just having Tony Stark appear like in Hulk. Iron Man 2 is another great one, teasing the next movie, and then introducing an iconic prop of the universe, Thor's hammer. R.I.P. Mjolnir. But by the end of Phase 1, it was just diminishing returns. Captain America ends with one of the weakest, just him meeting Nick Fury and hearing about the Avengers. It's basically the same as Iron Man, 3 out of 10. The last two great ones came in Phase 2, starting with Captain America Winter Soldier. It's not the best tease of what's to come in Age of Ultron, but seeing the twins for the first time is a real treat. 8 out of 10. And finally, Ant-Man starts the new paradigm of post-credit sequence, with a one for you, one for me style. Part 1 is a tease of the sequel to this movie. We get the first look at the Wasp suit, and suddenly you want to watch the sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Part 2 is a tease of Civil War, and we get to see the first time that Ant-Man's linked into the larger universe, advancing the story all the way to Infinity War. You see this new paradigm again in Doctor Strange. They use one to set up Mordo as the villain for a Doctor Strange sequel, and then tease his next appearance in the Marvel Universe in Thor Ragnarok. And then Black Panther does the same thing again. They show Wakanda's reveal to the world, setting up a Black Panther sequel, and then show Bucky and Wakanda, teasing that Black Panther's going to come back in Infinity War. Just a tip for Captain Marvel: set up her sequel, and then tie her into the MCU. It works. So looking at what's done right, here are some of the worst, and how you can fix them. Iron Man 3 never had a sequel, and probably never will, which could explain why they decided to go with a dead-end post-credit scene, where Tony Stark bears his soul to therapist Bruce Banner. It's meant to be silly, but it really doesn't do anything in terms of a sequel, or teasing Iron Man's next appearance, which didn't come until Age of Ultron. And that sets up exactly how to write the post-credit scene. We'll start with Tony in his lab, and he's shooting the shit with Jarvis like he usually does, working on a new security protocol. Jarvis asks him, "Mr. Stark, what would you like to name the save file?" And Tony replies, "Put this on my encrypted server under the file name Ultron." Boom. Tease that he's working on something that he shouldn't, introduce the name Ultron, and you'll send fanboys into a tizzy. Moving forward to Age of Ultron, this is the first time we saw Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. Not the first time we saw him, just him and the glove. It's all well and good, but it doesn't really do much in the short term. The payoff doesn't come until Infinity War, and there were 7 movies in between then and now. Not to mention, we already got a pretty good intro to the Infinity Stones in Guardians of the Galaxy, so a fancy glove doesn't really mean much. This is where we can bring the idea of stakes from Fast 6, because there's nothing really to tease or introduce that's not going to lose steam or reveal too much of the story. One thing that's bothered me about the cinematic universe is that we're supposed to be shipping Scarlet Witch and Vision, but we've never really gotten much of a chance to see that develop. So our scene starts with Vision phasing through the wall as Scarlet Witch is undressing. She's startled, and he apologizes for coming right in. She has a moment of vulnerability with him, and we focus with her as she tries to use her powers to enter his mind. We start zooming in further and further on the Mind Stone, and that fades into the empty spot of the Infinity Gauntlet just as before. We tease Vision and Wanda, and tease the stakes that Thanos is coming, and Vision's stone puts him right in the crosshairs. Is Wanda destined to lose another person she loves? Now, I've only got a quick fix on Civil War, which had 2 unremarkable teases of solo outings of the heroes introduced in that movie, Black Panther and Spider-Man. Instead of flashing forward to the end of Phase 3, which is where those movies came, why not use this as an opportunity to tease the next movie, Doctor Strange, and where it ties into the universe? It's almost a throwaway reveal when we learn that Doctor Strange's Time Stone is an Infinity Stone in his movie, but it would have been a really interesting moment if we had used the post-credits scene in Civil War to tease that next stone, and introduce a fun new character in Wong, not unlike the scene in Thor 2 where we meet the Collector the first time and he gets a stone of his own. Doctor Strange's post-credits scene fall under the category of meh. Sure, they introduce the villain Mordo and Doctor Strange and Thor, but Mordo switching sides really isn't that scary, so it's not that exciting to see. And the scene in Thor is ruined by spoiling it here. It's not a tease, it's the whole shebang. And don't show the refilling mug joke. That's a Thor joke, not a Doctor Strange joke. So instead we look at the stakes route for Mordo. It's a good instinct to have him break bad, but I couldn't give less of a shit about Benjamin Bratt. Sorry, dude. But I would care if it was someone else that mattered to Doctor Strange, someone like Rachel McAdams. And then for the link for the universe, why not tease the Thor scene by introducing Odin into the world of Doctor Strange as he's meditating in Sanctum Sanctorum? They already allude to him helping because this is a problem for him that he needs to solve. So why not show him discovering that problem? Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and the first one have the most post-credit scenes by far, and they go back and forth in quality. Kraglin's Arrow doesn't tease or introduce. Neither do the original Guardians. They're just there for fun. Same with Teen Groot, and same with Stan Lee. The only tease of a sequel is the reveal of Adam, but honestly, who the heck is Adam? This one might just be too inside baseball. And speaking of inside baseball, I don't know what I was supposed to react to seeing a giant ship at the end of Thor, but it's like, cool bro, big ship. Knowing what we know now about the Guardians and Thor meeting up in Infinity War, I've got a double whammy for you. So in Guardians 2, we're in the cockpit of the Milano as Peter Quill pilots. He tells Gamora, check the radar, and she tells him the electronics are bugging out. Now in Thor, we don't intro the massive ship. Instead, just like at the beginning, we listen to Thor narrating to the audience, and we fade in to see him hurtling through space. Then he smacks like a bug on the windshield of the Milano. 2 teases of Infinity War, the pairing of Thor and the Guardians, and you don't have to blow those reveals in the trailer. You can do it in an actual movie. So finally we get to Infinity War, and while the movie's about to come out, we already really know enough to start on the post-credit scenes. We've met all of the major players, so there really aren't any more introductions to be made. If anyone, this is the time for Captain Marvel. And maybe, if Ant-Man and Hawkeye aren't in the movie like they haven't been in the trailers, this is where they come in. I've also heard Silver Surfer, which would be cool, but only if he figures into the sequel. My dark horse isn't so much of an intro as the return of Thanos' minion, Ronan the Accuser, from Guardians of the Galaxy. But as we know, the MCU is bloated, and they're ready to start jettisoning stars rather than introduce new ones. Post-credits really isn't the time to kill someone big, so we're not losing Captain America here. But maybe this is the last time we see Loki, teasing more for Thor in the finale. Maybe this is where we lose Nebula, setting up Gamora for a showdown with her father. If you're the friend of a hero with a solo movie, look out. I'm looking at you, Falcon. Rhodey already lost his legs. He's probably good. One last tease before the end of it all. One last thing to get you to see the finale, because, yeah, you weren't hyped enough. Like, subscribe, you know the deal. See you next time on Do That Again.